What's up, guys? Welcome to the Win Daily Sports Main Slate Preview with your host, Andrew Erickson. You can find me on Twitter at @AndrewErickson_. Welcome to the Win Daily Video YouTube channel. We're going to be talking about Week 9, and I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite picks. So we're not going to be going game by game necessarily, but some of my most favorite picks for this upcoming slate. And the first guy I want to talk about is Jameis Winston, quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's coming in on this slate at $6,100, and I think that he is the ultimate play in GPPs. The Seahawks, this defense, has allowed the most passing attempts and the second most passing yards to quarterbacks over the past 4 weeks. Seattle also has the third worst graded pass rush by Pro Football Focus. I don't really think that the Seattle defense is going to do anything to be able to stop Jameis Winston. We see blow-up spots from Winston all the time, but people are still afraid to play him because of the interceptions and the turnovers. But we had Bruce Arians backing him up last week, and also Bruce Arians has a great history of success against the Seattle Seahawks with Pete Carroll from his time with the Arizona Cardinals. He's very successful in that building, and the Seahawks have not been that great at home this year. So I do think that Jameis Winston is someone to definitely target, and then obviously you're going to want to stack him with his receivers, with Mike Evans at 6,600, and then especially with Chris Godwin, who comes in at 7,300. Excuse me, Mike Evans is at 7,200. Chris Godwin at 7,300. I think Godwin's worth paying up for. I think that people may be more inclined to play Mike Evans because he's coming in a little bit cheaper at 7,200, but Chris Godwin is in a smash spot. If you look at the Seahawks, most targets to the receiver position over the past 4 weeks. He's coming off his second worst performance. And if you look on Twitter from our friend Derek Brown, Godwin has a 75.9% catch rate and has scored 61.5% of his touchdown versus zone coverage. The Seahawks this season are playing 60% of their cornerbacks from zone coverage. So I think that it's Chris Godwin season, it's Jameis Winston season, play those guys in GPPs. As for cash games at quarterback, I really like Matt Moore for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that he is someone that you can slot in. He's super cheap, and with us trying to save salary this week with the higher expensive running backs, I think that Matt Moore is perfect as a quarterback. We see how good he could be with Andy Reid, and it's all scheme fit. You know, they've been running a lot of play action plays, so I think that Matt Moore is fine in a cash game setting, and also you can play him and stack him with Tyreek Hill, stack him with Sammy Watkins. So those are some guys I like. I actually like that stack in cash, Sammy Watkins and Matt Moore as a kind of cash upside play with the cheap quarterback. Obviously, that depends on if Patrick Mahomes is not playing in this game. If we go ahead now another game I really like in this matchup, or in this slate, is the Raiders and the Detroit Lions. But I do think that there is a little bit of a trap here. A lot of people are hyping up Derek Carr. He's at 5,500. He's definitely going to be probably the chalkiest quarterback out of all the quarterbacks. He's really low value. And with us trying to save salary with the Dalvin Cooks and Christian McCaffreys, who I'm just going to slot in here as we do our cash build, I think that Derek Carr is going to be pretty popular, probably 5,500. However, I'm not so sure that despite his smile and his face, I'm not so sure he's the best option. So if you look at the Lions, so they've allowed the fourth most fantasy points per game over the past 4 weeks to the quarterback position. That's good. However, because of Carr, just the way that Carr operates, also he's a guy that's, when Carr is chalk, it's a little scary. But the thing is, I really like Josh Jacobs a lot more in this spot. He's at 6,500. The reason is the Raiders want to be a run-first team. If you look at their neutral game script kind of play calling, Oakland runs the most run plays, fifth most in the NFL, and they're successful at it, 5.2 yards per carry. The Lions' defense is also equally as bad against the run. They've allowed the fifth most fantasy points to running backs over the past 4 weeks. So realistically, the Raiders are favorites at home. They want to run the ball, and they should be able to run the ball effectively against the Lions defense that has not been able to stop the run, which is why I'm not as excited about Derek Carr in this matchup. If you look at the Raiders again, the Detroit is also allowing 27 rushing attempts per game at 5 yards a carry on the road. And if you look at just the game splits for Carr and Josh Jacobs, they have a negative correlation. Carr's averaging 11.7 points per game at home versus 18 points per game on the road. And Jacobs is averaging 22.5 fantasy points per game at home versus just 11.7 points per game on the road. So I'm on team Josh Jacobs this week and off of team Derek Carr this week. I think Josh Jacobs is someone that you could definitely smash in cash games, and I think he's also a really great GPP play for sure in your GPP lineups. Moving ahead, here we go to tight end, Jack Doyle. So the reports came out that T.Y. Hilton is actually going to miss this game, and he's going to miss probably a couple of more games as well. So I really like Jack Doyle in this spot. He's coming in at tight end at $3,000, so he's pretty cheap, and he's going to get targets. the matchup is also really good on paper against the 26th worst team against the tight end position. I think that Jack Doyle is a good play this week in cash games. He may not have as much touchdown upside as a guy like Eric Ebron, but we've seen in the past Jacoby Brissett target Jack Doyle. And if you look at his game log, specifically looking at this Raiders matchup, he had 8 targets, his most targets of the season, in the one game where T.Y. Hilton missed. That's not a coincidence. And just look at this report here. Doyle could see a hands for one of the Colts passing game Sunday against the Steelers without T.Y. Hilton. So again, I think that it's an easy smash spot. It's an easy play for Jack Doyle. He's really cheap, $3,000, and I don't really love paying up for tight end this week with us trying to save salary. So I think Jack Doyle is someone that you can slot in there as well. And again, speaking of injuries, we've obviously had the big news yesterday come out with Jalen Samuels and James Conner. So James Conner is likely going to miss this game. So James Samuels basically becomes the lock-in play at 4K in DraftKings. I mean, just play him, guys. Like, there's not really much that has to go into it. He's going to get all the touches. We've seen how successful he's been able to be in a featured role with the Steelers. They just know how to treat their running backs. And I mean, just imagine if James Conner was at $4,000. That's kind of like the way you look at it. It's like, I don't see the big difference between their two skill sets necessarily. So I really think that Jalen Samuels, again, smash spot, just throw him in there. He opens up a lot of options there for you at the receiver position. And just kind of a positions as well. So again, this also creates an opportunity for some of the other receivers I really like on today's slate, or in this week's slate. Jarvis Landry. So he's coming in at $4,500, and I think he's a really cheap guy that is actually pretty good. He has upside. We know what kind of player he can be. He makes big plays in the passing game, and he's facing the Denver Broncos, where it's not a matchup that, okay, the Denver Broncos rank number 1 against the pass. That is correct. However, and against receivers, but that's a lot to do with Chris Harris, and he's most likely going to be locking down Odell Beckham Jr. He even came out and said, hey, I'd rather prefer to just shadow Odell Beckham. So Odell Beckham is going to be covered by Harris, which means that Landry's going to get a lot of other opportunities against some weaker cornerback plays. So I think that he's a guy that you can slid into your cash lineup. Looking at his target share, over the past couple games, he had 10 targets last week. He's had 10 targets twice already, 9 targets again. He's had one game where he's had less than 6 targets just once, and that was 5 targets. So his worst fantasy points of the season are 6. Other than that, he's been above double digits almost in every other game. So I think that Jarvis Landry is a great guy to play in cash. He also has no touchdowns. Baker Mayfield has been running extremely cold in the touchdown department this season, so I think that there's some regression that's going to happen for our buddy Jarvis Landry. When it comes to defenses, one of the defenses I like paying down for this week is the Carolina Panthers at $2,800. The Tennessee Titans are coming in with Ryan Tannehill, who's been playing really well this season. But the thing with Tannehill, and this is something I always try to stress, is Tannehill's really good at home, but he's not really good on the road. He has trouble with fumbles and things like that. Everyone saw the Panthers get basically destroyed by the 49ers last week. But I think that there's going to be a little bit of a different script here with Tannehill on the road for the first time as a starter. So I do not like Tannehill. I'm kind of afraid of playing him this week, which is why I really like the Panthers defense at $2,800. And that leaves us with $6,500 to work with as a receiver that we can kind of slot in. And of course, we can't play T.Y. Hilton. That's not going to work because he's obviously out in this game. But you can get guys like Keenan Allen, someone that's going to get a lot of targets. And Keenan Allen in cash at $6,400, that is a really, really great deal. Or then a guy like Juju Smith-Schuster, who is way too low priced here at $6,300. He's coming in way too cheap. That's honestly way too cheap for a receiver that's the number 1 on their team. So I'm just going to slot in Juju Smith-Schuster here to kind of flow out our cash game lineup. You have him then coming back with Jalen Samuels, and we have a bunch of kind of mini stacks here. You have Jack Doyle with Jalen Samuels on one side, and then along with Juju Smith-Schuster, both on the Steelers. So again, this is something that you can use as a cash game build. I'm always looking to tweak receivers here and there, so that may be something I do change up a little bit. But one receiver I do want to mention, obviously, is Devontae Adams. So he is questionable for this game. He's coming in at $7,100, and the thing with him is he's going to be very low owned whether he plays or not. Obviously, if he doesn't play, he's hopefully not owned by anybody, but he's going to be low owned across the board because they play in a late game. So people are going to be afraid to play him. So what I would recommend is if you do decide to play Aaron Jones in cash or in GPP, you play Aaron Jones and then you swap off of him. But you make sure in your lineup build that you leave $100 left so you can swap. You swap off Aaron Jones, you pay that extra $100 to get up to a Devontae Adams, because I think that Adams could definitely smash in this game against the Chargers. He's going to be super low owned, and we've seen him that he's second in the team in targets, despite the fact he's missed so many games. He's behind Aaron Jones. So Jones's targets are probably going to go down. Adams are going to probably go up in this game. So I think that he is a perfect GPP, great late swap pivot target. Or if you're kind of in a cash lineup and your lineup's kind of getting burned, switch to a Devontae Adams from an Aaron Jones. And just make sure you have some salary left over. Whether it's defense, you pay, $100 down, so make sure you have left over. Like in this lineup build here, I have $200 left remaining salary. So there are ways to kind of get your guy like Devontae Adams into your lineup. So guys, thank you for listening. Thanks for watching the video. Let me know in the comments what you think, and if there's something else you want me to add, talk about. Specifically, we're going to be rolling out a new format for the upcoming games here, and make sure you check out in the description of the video on the website. We have some of our favorite bets and prop bets from our friends at Monkey Knife Fight. So make sure you go, guys, check that out, and make sure you capitalize on the promotion that we're doing here at windailysports.com.